Hi there everybody, I go by the name of Nick Dutch and I'm doing a series of videos at the moment which I call The Experiments. The experiment, so to speak, is an attempt to look at ideas that you might not necessarily feel comfortable with, or I might not necessarily feel comfortable with, to assess that there may be some positives within them somehow. If there is some kind of overarching ideology for the experiment itself, it's to suggest that within this world there is something for everybody, and that even something which might be considered to be negative or dark or unpleasant or not your sort of thing might still have some kind of benefits to society in some respects. Despite the fact that I may be approaching this from a very liberal or almost egalitarian kind of way, I don't feel it is appropriate for me to be selling some of the ideas which I am criticizing, and I'm certainly not trying to encourage you to think, oh, wonderful, these ideas are perfectly okay in every possible way. That's not the intention of this particular series. It's merely to try and help us as individuals to, I suppose, be a bit more accepting of people who have problems or issues or have a certain level of obsession towards a certain concepts, rather than to say, oh, okay, here's an example of something which is pure evil and sickness and an unpleasant ideology. It's all right, really, which, I'm not going to do. So I just want you to make sure you understand this particular frame of reference about what I'm doing, so that you don't feel that you're being drawn in the wrong direction. Okay? Some of the videos I've seen out there on the internet which have gone into ideas which are a little negative, do try and sell them positively. And I think it's one of the differences between what I'm doing here and what some other people are doing, people who are actual pundits for those various causes, is because I'm trying to help us to be a little bit more objective about the various different hard dogmatic personal lines that we might have, and also to maybe lower some of the barriers of fear or concerns that we might have when dealing with ideas which are a little difficult. Now, I'd like to talk today about LeVeyan Satanism. Again, not because I'm trying to sell it. I personally am someone who has, for quite a long time, found that the ideas which have been connected to Satanism or satanic imagery have been thoroughly inappropriate. I personally don't get on with them. They make me feel uncomfortable, and for me to even talk about it, it makes me think, oh, what am I doing? It's not comfortable for me at all. So that's why I'm having a look at this one particular subject, based loosely upon what I've already known, plus a bit of extra research here and there, which I've done in the meantime. LeVeyan Satanism, it was essentially a money-making cult set up by Anton LaVey way back in 1966. It was for the purposes, as far as I could tell, of Anton LaVey actually making money. And of course he wrote the Satanic Bible, which had a complex, almost split-minded attitude associated with personal and self-development. On one side of things, there was the encouragement of improving your character and improving your intelligence, but on the other hand, there was also a very robust form of selfishness which was being sold, even to the point of mentioning the possibility of aggression. And also within the writings of Anton LaVey, there was a kind of like a turning of Christianity upon its head. I mean, all of the writings associated with LeVeyan Satanism have some kind of cross-reference to those which are associated with Christianity, and are therefore designed to either poke fun at, which can be a good thing, to challenge or to outright mock completely ideas which come straight out of Christianity. To turn Christianity on its head is essentially, in this particular case, to do the reverse of that which is regarded from the point of view of either the reader or of Anton LaVey himself, of going against Christianity. Some of the ideas associated with Satanism, so I understand, have been actually used quite positively and quite beneficially within the feminist movements. Some of them have helped individuals who feel that they have been held back by some of the attitudes, such as turn the other cheek within Christianity, because of the action against that type of phrase within LeVeyan Satanism. It's given those people a certain level of freedom. Then, of course, there was the civil rights movement, which one could say, although it was not inspired by Satanism at all, seems to have some kind of direct correlation to the turning Christianity on its head idea, which occurred at about that particular rather politically turbulent time in history. Essentially what Anton LaVey had done is he had managed to successfully select a time when there was a rebellion against some established forms of thinking, or indeed some established forms of punditry in reality. It's not really thinking, it's punditry, to try and turn things around. Okay, I mean, slavery may be mentioned in the Bible rather a lot, especially in the Old Testament, and there's even a certain number of, religious laws associated with slaves themselves, if you go back far enough into the Old Testament itself. So it seems to be an attack against Bible literalism, which I personally regard as being quite a good thing. So let's just think more about what good LeVeyan Satanism has actually done. For those who have got involved with it, it's provided people with a structure to their atheism. It's provided people, well, for those who've taken an atheistic point of view, there are, of course, theistic Satanists who actually believe in Satan as being God and actually use the image or idea associated with Satan as being the higher power concept to run their lives, which is curious. I don't really feel it's necessarily all that healthy. It's also provided people with a sense of being able to look after themselves and to be able to fight back when it is required, rather than to just be someone who is loyal and obedient. This can be useful when it comes to trying to create forms of social change or ideological change. And again, I regard that as being a positive and a strong positive. It's also taken people who've had maybe a lack of sense of identity, and has provided them with a feeling of strength, determination, purpose, and something which they can hang their ideas upon as a human individual. I'm sure for some people this has actually been very healing. So essentially, within the 20th century especially, and possibly the 21st century now, I'm of the opinion that LeVeyan Satanism has actually had its place. That's the wonderful thing about ideas. Okay, they tend to gravitate, rather like water finding its own level. I don't know whether you've ever done any caving, or you've been into, you've seen the way that caves seem to operate, and how the water table within a cave can settle itself out. Water always finds its own level, and people seem to find their own level, or seem to gravitate to ideas which seem to suit their mentality or their personal needs at the time. Maybe these can be regarded as being permanent things for those who want to take this is my permanent ideology until the day I die and or beyond, depending upon what their beliefs are. Or indeed, is it a temporary thing for the purposes of providing some self-healing? Now, if you remember just a few videos ago, I did a video about a individual who, this was a comment on another video, which was more or less a Christian evangelical video, to be honest. But the character in that one particular video went through Satanism as a result, so it seems, of having been abused or treated badly, and then found his way out of Satanism in that particular video, and it was about into Christianity. So that particular example kind of got me thinking that maybe the various cults and subcults are there to help heal certain specific issues that people have been given as a result of some of the more aggressive forms of punditry which happens in the world. Of course, punditry is when, or a pundit is an individual who tends to speak and carry a certain message for a living. Okay, that's their job. It's their job to portray a certain message. So you've got conservative pundits, liberal pundits, and so on and so forth. Pundits for the oil and gas industry and all other kinds of evils. So, words themselves, ideas and symbols, have a certain form of power. Now, this is not the way I'm explaining it to you now is it's not a question of some form of supernatural occult power or the power to control spirits. Okay, it has a power over individuals. Alright, if you think about it, a lot of people move into the pagan movement because they're moving away from some of the dogmatic ideas within Christianity or some of the bad ways in which things are being promoted. Some people, again, move out of paganism into Christianity because of the ways in which some people within paganism promote their ideas. Okay, so those individuals who portray the hard and fast, aggressive, dogmatic ideas within any group, okay, they aren't the majority, but they are the cause of the pain within people and the kind of psychological damage. which can lead individuals to either set up new movements or to become part of other existing movements, possibly for the purposes of temporarily healing them psychologically in some particular respects. Now, that would of course be true in the case of movements which are geared towards attitudes rather than those who are promoting the possibility of gaining some kind of tremendous physical world result like miraculous healing, wealth, and ultra prosperity, as in the prosperity gospel, which I think is a little fucked, for want of a better word. So LeVeyan Satanism is a subculture. It's a subset of Satanism. It's a subset of Judeo-Christian thought. It's a subculture within the world. It has its own imagery. It has its own language. It has its own specific key moral issues which it is trying to address. Okay? But those are often the antithesis of the pain that was caused to the individual who was suffering whatever it was that led them into that particular subculture. So my point of view within this particular video is that LeVeyan Satanism has a healing effect for some individuals. I don't think it's healthy for people to have a pain, get involved in the cult, immerse themselves in that imagery if the imagery and psychology and ideas are so heavily geared towards something which is what you might call excessively negative. I feel that all forms of religion, religiosity, and of course even being on the internet watching tons of YouTube videos associated with one particular concept can still have a pathogenic effect. If I think about the time when I made a mistake when I was in my period of ill health, of looking into the conspiracy theorists and the damage which it did me. I mean, I wasn't joining a cult, but I was immersing my mind in the same ideas over and over and over again through watching videos on YouTube every single day associated with that particular concept. Now, if you, and of course it damaged me and I had to get out of it, and I use all kinds of other sources to help yourself get out of that particular mindfuck, as well as to dramatically look after my diet, my nutrition, my exercise, and my sleep. And of course I'm working more on my exercise now, as you can tell. You've got my cross trainer behind me. And it's there to protect my mind as well as my body. You see what I mean? Alright, so what happened to me during that time when I was just not doing anything theological, but perpetually hearing the same kind of message, perpetually seeing the same kind of message, was that my mind was being adjusted by those concepts. Now, if you're involved, let's say, in Satanism, alright, and you've got, let's say, the figurehead character of Satan, and maybe the attitude of this character has been shifted by the words of someone like Anton LaVey to be something which generates too much in the way of selfishness, or too much in the way of self-identity, rather than necessarily compassion for society. Maybe that can be damaging. Now, maybe too much compassion for society, as in some forms of, let's say, Judeo-Christian or even Buddhist religious groups, could also be damaging to the individual when there's certain ways we need to survive within the Western world at the moment. Okay? Maybe that can also be pathogenic as well. As creatures, human creatures, are we just trying to seek some kind of equilibrium in an ever-changing world? Are we just trying to seek balance and harmony in a world which is not allowing us to have some kind of stability and security and something which is always there and a stable sense of identity? Is that what it's all about? Is that why people go through various different religious movements and different cults? Is that why LeVeyan Satanism, or indeed other more extreme groups like the Order of Nine Angles, also exists? Alright, because I would say that there's a sickness that people can feel somehow inside them, which can lead them into these various different groups. And so some groups may be because of their groupthink, because of the way in which they use their language and their imagery. Maybe they're actually an example of a form of sickness. And of course that does include Christianity or forms of Christianity as well. Okay? So, when you are out there on the internet and you're surveying different ideas, and you're looking at them all, and you're thinking, what's good about this, what's bad about that? maybe what you could be doing is taking yet another angle to it and saying, what sickness, what pain is this thing trying to sell to? Which particular psychological or emotional demographic of people is this one particular set of ideas trying to sell to? Who is it trying to attract? And then have a look at people who've got out of that movement, whatever it was, and see what problems they developed as a result of maybe taking that particular cult or culture too seriously. And then have a look at what self-identity they themselves developed and the ideas that they then express. And have a look and see where the forms of sickness lie in their ideas, and see whether they themselves are actually trying to find a path through different ideas to reach a position of healing of their either actual or proverbial spirit, the mind, the heart, the emotions. LeVeyan Satanism does actually have its place in society. It is a natural force, okay, because it's like ideas themselves are part of nature. Okay, we hold ideas, they become part of a group of people, the people have their ideas, they are a force of nature. And some can be destructive, and some can be harmful, and some can damage individuals, some can damage other groups of people. They all have their place to a certain extent, but it's now a question of which particular ideas are superior, both within and outside of those groups, that should win the intellectual and ideological battle that I think we should be thinking about. Okay? Just a quick ramble for today. Look after yourself, good fortune, and God bless.